Hey, I'm Morgan.
I'm Chris. Welcome to the Midlife Mud,
where we promise to bring the real shit, all the grit, and pretty much zero clue about how to deal with this crazy phase of life.
And by the way, because this is all about feeling less alone, what we want most is to connect with you.
Absolutely. So take a few seconds and visit themidlifemud.com and join our community.
And you'll stay up to date on all the dirt.
And even better, become a part of the conversation.
We can't wait to see you there. All right, tighten those boots and let's get muddy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow. I feel like that was a review of like basic etiquette. When I say good morning, you say?
I say I am not a morning person.
I'm not either, but
you're better at it than I am, though.
I'm not really a night person.
Yeah, I'm a really good between 10 to 12 in the morning person.
Holy shit, maybe I'm not a person.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I'm drinking tea out of my crab mug.
As one does.
It is a mug that has a big crab on it.
Because you're in Cape Cod. That's appropriate.
It's appropriate. Yeah.
I'm drinking water. I really wish I were drinking coffee. But that's okay. I'm gonna pep up here.
Yeah? All right. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, we've got all the Derby festivities this weekend. At the time of this recording, that's today is Oaks Day, so I will not be participating in any of that. But
I know it's like little Christmas there or something. I don't know. It's a very big event.
It's like a mass influx of people. This is great for our city,
right?
But if you are a local, you're either one of those people that's a diehard, or you are one of those people that's like, okay, I'm going to crawl in a hole for the week.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was talking to Mom last week and she said that she wasn't feeling it this year. And she thought that part of why she hadn't really been put in the mood is because Thunder didn't happen.
Yeah. Thunder over Louisville, which is for those of you that don't know, it's the big fireworks show that sort of kicks off all of the Derby events, usually 2 to 3 weeks before Derby happens. And it's a big, 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 big deal. And yeah, we were underwater, so we didn't do it. And yeah, they also moved around a lot of the events. Like the Derby parade was on Sunday instead of Thursday.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't know. It was all weird.
So what happens on my side of things is I think this is actually fairly common in teachers' families that have a lot of teachers, is the child birthdays are kind of planned to be in the spring sometime so that you can...
Right, because then you can extend your maternity leave into summer.
Right. It's a great plan for the year that the child is born. But when you have 6 of them in one family, what happens is there ends up being a party every weekend. And that's added on top of the soccer tournaments, the dance recital, the graduation.
Yeah, we already talked about how it's a crazy time of year anyway.
Oh my God.
Well, and also how seriously do you take birthdays? You know, like some people make birthdays a huge, huge deal. And then some people are like, oh, happy birthday, here's a present. So there's that too. But
the answer is very serious.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's like a sport.
Yes.
for you guys.
So today, given your proclivity towards organization, tell us what we're talking about.
Well, you know what? Okay, let's just bring it down to a level that everybody sort of understands. So the fact that we are recording this morning, right? We have talked about how recording in the evenings is it's a challenge for us. We're tired. It's the end of the day. We're ready to wind down. And so you and I talked the other day about how let's see what we can do to change that. And granted, you've got your schedule, which is total bonkers,
right,
in terms of your work, and mine is bonkers for all the reasons it's bonkers. So for us to be able to connect during the day, during the week, can be a challenge. And we thought, well, let's try to do it early in the morning before you go to work. So it's really early. We're going to see how this works. But the other piece of that is this is something that we care about, and we're trying to manage our time around it so that it works and it's sustainable. So that's what we want to talk about today is okay, how do we manage our time? You know, we are super busy people in midlife.
We're fucking time masters.
No, No, we are not.
No, we're
We
not.
started 20 minutes late.
You're ruining it. You're ruining it.
Yeah. Back to the fact that we don't have any answers. But what we will talk about is time in general, like time is a resource, right? And we thought it was prudent, especially since we just talked about money being another resource. How do we manage our time? How do we spend it? And the reality is that there are a bunch of things that we have to do that we cannot ignore. And there are things that we want to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we talked last time. The last discussion we left off with was around the emotional relationships that we have with money. And one of the things that I carried over into this conversation, we're not talking about money anymore. We're talking about time, but that's another valuable resource in our life. And there is this concept of how do I value myself today and honor being present in this moment today, right now, and also the future me.
Yeah, because you have to do both. You have to plan a little bit, but you want to be present in the moment that you're in at the same time.
Right. And particularly in midlife, if you have kids and family and a career and all of those things that you're balancing, for each one of those things comes all these other things that have to go on the calendar and or the to-do list every single day. And it just gets really busy. And it's really easy to just feel like I'm on a treadmill and there's nothing that I can do but just fulfill these lists because that's all I have time to do. And somehow what can happen is I get lost. Like we can get lost as who we are in all of that mess.
That's the particular, I don't want to say danger, but risk in midlife is that I think it's easy to start putting your identity into, I am what I accomplish and what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, this sort of keeping busy is a distraction from understanding who we really are and what we really want. And to your point about the treadmill, like the treadmill is going however fast it's going. And if you slow your pace, you're going to fall off of it.
Right.
Is the feeling. I know I felt that way before. But the reality is, you can push the button to slow down the speed.
You can?
Right?
What?
We forget that.
Well, I don't know about you. I mean, well, actually, I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but I feel like I'm maybe in a little bit different predicament, at least at the current moment, than a lot of my peers and the people that I relate to. Just in that I have more time at this particular moment. I haven't always.
Yeah.
But it's funny because when you have more time, there are still challenges with time. They're just different. But one of the things before diving into that more that I was thinking about is earlier in life, I thought of this analogy of a painting. Like I create this painting of what I want life to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have 3 kids and they're going to go to school and, I want them involved in activities and I'm going to have a career and I'm going to be married, whatever those things are for the individual. I mean, that's kind of what mine looked like, right?
Yeah.
And then that painting gets sort of frozen in time. And back to your point about all I'm doing is just trying to make sure that I'm living out that painting. But the thing is, like, things change. Like,
right.
It's not the same painting anymore. But I'm still hanging on to that.
It's just a blob of paint.
Right. It's just a blob of paint. And it's black because that's what happens when you mix all the colors.
Yeah. They bleed together. Well, I have always had this when I look back, okay, I've kept a journal since I was like 8.
Which, by the way, I admire dearly. I cannot do that shit.
Well, I don't do it as much anymore in adulthood.
Yeah.
It would be good to do. But when I look back, I was really good about it, like all through from 8 through high school into college even. And it's so interesting because when I look at that, I have always had sort of this weird thing with time, meaning that like I'm desperate to hold on to it. I can feel it passing. And then when I had kids, it became even more in my face.
Yeah.
I would write about how, okay, for instance, like holding my first son, right? Like 3 days after he was born. I remember sitting in the rocker in the corner of the nursery. And granted, I was hormonal, but like rocking him and thinking about, have I told this story before? I may have, but Either way, I immediately thought about how he was already looking bigger. He was 3 days old. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to go to college. And blah, blah, blah. Like I start bawling.
Yeah.
And especially this time of year, like you get into graduations, you get into like the milestone stuff, it grabs at me like, shit, time is it's going. And I can't grab onto it. I think that speaks to the importance of like really trying to be in it. And so I think I've spent a lot of my life trying to figure that out. How do I get in it? How do I get in it and go with it instead of trying to grab onto it?
Yeah.
And I think adulthood just feels different. Have you noticed that? Is it the same for you? Like that time seems to just pass exponentially faster the older we get?
Well, that's the thing that I've always heard. And that's absolutely my experience so far.
Yeah.
It just goes faster and faster and faster. And in fact, my girlfriend and I were just having this conversation about sort of a mini dilemma about vacations. And we had talked about like her and I haven't really had a trip for ourselves in a while. And we had talked all this year about putting a week on the calendar this summer where her and I just took a trip.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing to do. And then this other thing came in where there's a particular trip that the kids just love to do. And they've really been asking to do this trip. And she and I have just been racking our brains with the calendar, trying to figure out when are we going to do this trip? And the kids are 14 and 11. And that sounds like, oh, there's time. But really, we're going to freaking blink. I mean, I've watched it with your kids.
I know.
And then they're going to graduate high school. So we literally could not come up with a time for like 2 years unless we really make some decisions about like maybe not doing our trip, she and I this year, and we just do that one. And you know what? I'm totally good with that because, that's an example of honoring where we are. And we're never going to get that time back.
Yeah. It's a real thing. You look at your calendar and also just the day to day. Like, how am I going to find the time to meal plan and go to the damn grocery store and, work out or spend time with my spouse, go to the kids' baseball game? I mean, it is all very real. Have you ever seen that meme where it's like, it says something like, okay, adulthood is just repeatedly telling yourself that, okay, after this week, things are going to settle down. How I've done that. Like I literally will scroll through my calendar, be like, oh, right here is where it starts to. No, it gets filled up.
Yeah, it usually manifests itself either in the following two ways. We just have to get through this week. Or another tried and true tradition is the countdown. We have 18 more days until Christmas vacation. We have 37 days until we're boarding the ship, like
the fun stuff.
On one hand, I love that because it says that you have a fun thing planned. And that's like a really cool thing to do in life is always to have something that you're looking forward to. But it can be dangerous because you can miss today.
Yeah. So back to my book, like how do you get in time? How do you get in it and go with it?
I don't know. There's this other analogy that I use in my own brain to process this sometimes. And it's like, we've got a car and we're driving the car 65 miles down the freeway. And we need to keep driving the car at 65 miles an hour while changing the tire. Like, how do you do that?
That sounds like something my son would do.
Well, he would definitely try.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. How the fuck do we do that?
And by the way, if there are any engineers listening and you actually have an idea of how to do it, send us a note because I really want to know.
I know for me, one of the common pitfalls I fall into. Let's just talk about those first because I think that's just more real. We are not time masters. We are not. I am perpetually late for things. And I think part of that is because I just procrastinate.
Yeah.
And if I procrastinate the one thing that I'm really not wanting to do, it has a domino effect. It like delays everything that I need to do,
I do. Procrastination was like a huge word that came up for me when I was thinking about this topic. And I have this really long-standing relationship with procrastination. And I don't think that's uncommon, but, it shows up in all these different forms. In one hand, one way that I've used procrastination is, it sounds weird, but almost as a motivator.
Say more.
I procrastinate, the pressure builds. I feel like, oh my God. And then the big thing gets close, and somehow that energy, that pressure,
like lights a fire under your butt.
Lights a fire, right.
Yeah, I do that too.
But it's stressful as hell.
And it's not like whatever I end up doing is not nearly what it could have been.
Quality's never what it could have been. And so then there's always, in my version of procrastination, there's generally always a level of guilt or regret or the combination of the two that weighs on me, right? And by the way, all of that shit takes up time.
Yeah, time and energy, which is another thing that we should really talk about, is like, even if you have the time, do you have the energy?
Ooh.
That is something you are also spending. I think that's part of procrastination, is like we're thinking, I don't want to spend my energy on that thing right now. I don't want to sit down and plan the grocery list. Right? That is I hate doing that. It is like one of the things consistently week to week that I absolutely hate doing. It's also my responsibility and I have to do it.
It is better than going to the grocery without a grocery list.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's even worse than writing.
I'm coming home with Oreos and...
Oh, like nothing. And you're going to spend a lot of money.
Yes,
and have
a
no
lot.
meals. Right.
So I get it. And I know that. Like it's something that I'm committed to doing, but I hate it.
Yep.
And so there are times when it's like, I want to procrastinate it. I want to put it off so that I can put my energy into something else that I really want to do.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I get that. But you still got to get it done.
Yeah. I love the idea of thinking about energy, and different activities work out differently. Like there are some activities that literally take energy away from me. Like they just take a lot of energy to do it. Going to the grocery is probably one of those. For me, cleaning, like I don't love that, but it's something that's got to be done. And then there's other activities that really provide me with energy. And that could be taking a walk, getting outside, exercising, just sitting still, meditating, reading a book, having quiet time with, somebody that I care about. Those are all things that feed me. But I noticed that, like, in terms of the running budget, what happens if I'm not really thoughtful is the energy sucking things. Those are all the things that we have to do, and they tend to take over.
Yeah.
Now, I said to you, like right now, in my particular moment in life, I'm a little bit on sabbatical from that.
You're tinkering around with the empty nester mode.
I am. Yeah.
Which some of our listeners are empty nesters.
I know.
So that's relevant. I can't even imagine it right now.
That's a whole other thing. Like when that treadmill that you described, it doesn't start to slowly blah, blah, blah. It's just like it's gone. And you're like, what? Huh?
And you're a little like dizzy, when you get off a treadmill and you can't, like you feel like you're just got off a boat or something.
Right. And the bottom line for me is that I will find a way to bitch about something, no matter what's happening.
Oh,
right? So
totally.
I didn't have enough time. Now I have too much time.
That is why we're here. We are here to bitch.
I know.
So depleting your energy versus energizing yourself, and the difference between those types of activities.
Right. What are some of the energy creating activities for you?
Okay. Duh. I have to sleep. I have to.
Oh, I relate to that so much.
I wish I were one of those people that can go with like 4 hours of sleep and be right on top of things.
All right. What's your number? Like bottom line number of hours?
Oh, God, you're going to laugh at me.
No, I won't.
It's like 9 hours.
Oh, I'm fucking 10. Like I love to be in the 10 zone.
No, which Matt does not understand. He's like, you can sleep when you're dead. Like, get up. But I do. I prioritize sleep so that I can be more awake during the day. Now, there is a tipping point, right? There is such a thing as too much sleep. If I sleep past that, then I'm just going to feel that sort of lazy haze all day. But yeah, I make it a priority to sleep. Another one, I think for me, like the real self-care stuff, I'll just list it all. So sleep, exercise, trying to make sure that I eat enough,
Yep.
that kind of stuff. It's not fun necessarily. And there are definitely times when I'm like, ugh, rolling my eyes that I, quote, have to do it. But to your point about energy, I think front loading my day with that kind of stuff propels me, and it helps me have the energy to do things in a more efficient way, the stuff that I've got to do. So that's like one, quote, hack, right? Is
Yeah.
taking the time to do the things that give me energy actually helps me get the other shit done more effectively and faster.
Yeah, I think one of the struggles with that sometimes is the notion that getting too much into that binary mode, like I'm going to take a whole day to just do stuff for myself and fuck everything else versus like really figuring out how to weave the two things together. And that's hard.
Yeah. To work anyway, for me, it has to become part of the routine. It is part of the routine.
Oh, fucking jeez.
I love routines. I love them. They make me feel safe.
If your kids are listening to this, they are all rolling their eyes like, oh my God, here she goes with the routine again. I'm sure.
I just want to say how much my dog appreciates my routine because she knows exactly what to expect from me at all times.
Well, God put that dog in your life and vice versa for a reason. You two are like soul sisters or something.
Well, I don't know. Let's talk about that. Like, what is your relationship with routine? How does that, because that doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes that feels really constricting to people.
I definitely am a routine-oriented person. I'm not to the level that I see you doing it. I think that when my routine is disrupted, I don't get too rattled by that most of the time. And in fact, I like a little bit of variability.
A little wiggle room.
I like to have a little spice, but there is definitely a structure. And I do like to be organized, and I'm very process-minded with a lot of things. I very much get that way with work. Like when I get into work mode, it is a mode.
Yeah.
Like I don't mess around. I work. And I get my stuff done, and I like it. It's like playing a little game. Like, how can I be the most efficient with getting all this done so that when I'm done with work at 5 o'clock or whatever the time
You're not thinking about it. You're not letting it.
I'm not coming home, and I'm not doing my notes at home and all of that stuff. Like, I'm done.
So there's a time management factor in there.
There is. Yeah. And I take a lot of pride in that routine around work and being efficient with that. And one of the reasons why that's so important for me is that I feel that it protects my time outside of work.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be at 9 o'clock worried about the work that I didn't get done earlier so that I'm ready for tomorrow. And God forbid that stacking up day after day after day.
Right. It takes a toll.
Right.
I'm curious, like when we talk about routine and like the relationship to habit forming and how that relates to time. I have not read that book. What is that book? Atomic Habits. People have told me it's so good.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just randomly bringing that up because I have an intention to read it. But, you can form good habits and you can form bad habits. And I think that's what it is for me with routine is it's a way for me to develop habits because I am very intentional usually about my routine. And it's a way for me to develop habits that are going to serve me, at least ideally. Not always, but that's the goal, right?
Right.
And it is nice to have a little bit of flex in there so that I'm not totally disrupted if it gets disrupted. But for those of us that are not super routine oriented, I'm curious how they are intentional with their habit building and so on and so forth. That's just putting a feeler out there for anybody who is a little bit more fly by the seat of your pants, which also I respect because that is being in the moment. That's probably why I'm so terrible at it because I'm too busy structuring my routine.
It's kind of interesting because the idea of habits and bringing that into this discussion is super critical. And I just that word didn't pop up for me a lot.
Me neither. Not until we were talking about routine.
Right. There's this other thing, like back to sort of the budget idea and thinking about time as a resource and the idea that I talked about that analogy of we make this painting when we're really young and then we're just following that narrative a lot of times, unless we're not. But I think there's an intentionality around taking stock of, all right, Like, what am I committed to right now? And what is the family committed to? And what will going through with all of those commitments on a weekly basis look like? And how's it going to affect? Like, is there time for us to connect? Or are we just going to be passing ships in the night when kids come home from baseball? I'm already in bed and they're eating dinner out of the refrigerator and I see them once a week. Like, that's an extreme scenario, but it happens.
Yeah. It's a challenge too, because when you talk about it that way, within the framework of a family,
Right.
as the kids get older, they have their own ways that they want to spend their time.
That's right.
And it's not always with you. Their peers become more important. And so it's a challenge because you also have to be realistic about what everybody else is going to want to spend their time doing. At least in my family right now, it's a pipe dream to think that we're all going to sit down at the dinner table together at one time and have a full meal together.
Right.
Every night. That's not going to happen. Not with the way our lives are structured right now. And I don't know, my kids, they like the things they're doing. One of them has a job. He likes his job. He likes to be there. He likes to earn money.
And that's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for him to have a work ethic. And so I have to consider, in that context, I have to consider what everybody is actually going to want to spend their time doing.
Well, and what you're talking about is that changes a lot depending on what stage of development. When we're talking about kids,
yes,
like how old are they? And you're in that particular scenario where you've got 1 to 2 of your kids. I say it that way because the older of the 2 younger is evolving towards that more independent zone, but still vacillating a little bit as kids do. So you've got to sort of plan for them, and that's a much more structured process than planning for the other 2, which is much less structured. And by the way, the other little thing that's in here that's not a little thing is yourself, like thinking about what you want to do. We're on this treadmill, and when the kids are little, the treadmill is intense. And all that's being done is like, you're just thinking about keep the lights on, keep the career going, keep the kids going on track, right?
survive.
And that becomes, speaking of habits, like a habitual reflexive thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, the universe is like, we're changing that now.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need, in fact, you shouldn't be putting as much structure in things for the rest of the family anymore. So now what are you going to do?
Yeah, you have to adapt, right?
Right.
Yeah. And well, I want to go back for a minute to what you said about like what is it that you want to do? And not just that, but like when we think what are the things that I really have to do?
Right.
What are my obligations here? The list probably isn't as long as we actually think that it is or tell ourselves that it is.
Right.
So there's something here about having boundaries around time, which is like no new shocking thing, but it's something that's easy to let go of.
Right.
And so being really mindful about, okay, when something comes to you, the PTA comes to you and says, we need brownies for the bake sale.
Right.
Will you bake 300 brownies? My easy answer is no, I won't. Some people, they are yes people.
Right.
They don't want to disappoint, and they, to their credit, they want to be everything for everyone as much as they can. I think this is really commonly seen with moms.
I think I see it a lot with moms for sure. And I think that's a good example of what I'm trying to say is in that there's a potential to get lost. Like, what's your direction?
Yeah. On the flip side of that, maybe your absolute passion is baking. And the idea of this really gets you excited and energized. And so is that something you want to pour your energy into and your time? Maybe it is.
And there's another thing too, like when my kids were young, I remember, I don't go there anymore because it's gotten too expensive, but a very popular coffee brand. And they had this lemon pound cake with like a royal icing.
Oh, yes.
And the 3 of us set out on this mission to recreate that lemon pound cake.
Oh, to make it?
To make it. And we tried multiple different recipes. And finally, through trial and error, we found one that was really good and that was very close. In fact, it might have actually been a little bit better than the Starbucks one, which it should have been because it's not packaged in a plastic wrapper for however long.
Yeah.
But baking was an experience and a connecting point. So I could see how the brownies could be that too, right? It's taking me to our tradition around making sticky buns.
Every Christmas.
It's a day-long process. And one of the things that's been really sometimes a challenge, because I can be a little bit controlling about the process. Like I want to make sure everything's right in the ingredients. But what we've endeavored to do is to make it a group activity.
You just said something really interesting that I want to follow up on, which is this whole thing about relinquishing control.
Yeah.
Okay. Because for me, as we all know, control is something I try to maintain. And that is actually something that takes up a lot of my time. Because when I am the one in control all the time, I am the one that usually wants to be doing all the things because I just can't let it go. And so delegating tasks, letting go, letting things get done a different way
Yes.
is crucial to me being able to get more of my own time back and sanity for that matter.
Right.
Like when I think about the kids doing chores around the house, are they doing the chores the way that I would do the chores? No. But first of all, it's good for them to learn those things, to how to do them on their own.
Right.
But it's also great for me to just step back and, okay, I can go do what I need to do and what I want to do. So I don't have to be right in the middle of all the activity, conducting it all the time.
There's a beauty there in you allowing yourself to have some space to be yourself, and also you allowing, within some structure with kids anyway, the kids some space to learn and explore and honestly like mess things up a little bit so that they're learning their own process.
Yeah.
Allowing a little bit of space for everybody is so important. And I think in the context of time, it's super important because that is the gateway to being able to say, okay, like they're going to handle it. I don't need to. And I think this is a particular thing with moms. It is a thing for dads too. It just maybe looks different. I don't need to be the hero here or the martyr.
Yeah, as you were saying that, so much of what was coming up to me is there's this whole image of just letting go. Instead of trying to hold on to time and grab it, how do you get into it? And maybe the answer is you let it go.
When you say let it go, I literally have this little churning in my stomach. Like, okay, here we go. We're going to let go. Like, it's a visceral feeling.
It's a process. Yeah.
It's such a push-pull letting go. Like, I feel impelled to do it and like I don't want to at the same time.
Yeah. And yet, when I imagine myself 100 years from now on my deathbed.
Your routines are very effective.
Okay, I'm not going to live that long. But, you have this idea that you're going to have all these sort of like memories flash before your eyes before you go. And I feel like the only way that I'm going to have that is if I let go. You don't really get those memories to seep into your core. At least I don't, unless I'm just there.
Yeah.
And I can't be there if I'm white knuckling it the whole time.
Yes.
So we've talked about control. We talked about routine and habit building. We talked about energy and like being mindful about what we pick. And so that has something to do with boundaries. We get to choose how we spend our time.
And the other thing that we talked about is that life phase shift towards the empty nest. And it feels like this vacuum gets left.
So that is one of my biggest fears. I have said to people before, okay, I'll put it into this context, but it kind of applies no matter what. I think about like, we put so much of our energy, especially as parents, we're constantly pouring into our kids. And it's easy to let that sort of become our identity. Like, I am a mom, and I am a mom. I wear that very proudly, but I've always been a little bit hesitant to just fall full force into that the way that some people do, because I'm like, okay, but they leave,
Right.
They grow up and they leave. And then what am I? Because I still have half my life left, hopefully.
I mean, come on, where's your math? You're going to live 100 more years. So you're only a third through. We've actually not named this podcast correctly for you. This is the third life, Mud.
Yeah. But I have this fear of like, okay, like I look at my husband and I go, well, who are you? And who am I? That empty nest thing
Right.
has always been a little bit on my radar. which I think helps me keep hold of me a little bit. But I'm curious what other people's experience with it are. You're sort of experimenting with it. I'm sure there are people out there that they're full blown into it. I want to know more about that.
Yeah. I kind of have my foot in both worlds a little bit, but I would say right now it's a bit more in the empty nest world.
Yeah. So what's this vacuum that you're talking? Like, what challenges does that bring up?
Well, just logistically, like all those things that were crammed in, like we got to go here and we got to do this and we got to make sure that, the meal is prepared by 5 p.m. and we're cleaned up by 5:30 and
the grind.
It's just gone. And then from like more of a social aspect, all of those things that you were doing in parallel with other people that had kids are either not there or it's vastly less than it was. And so it's socially different too. And there's a lot more time. At least what happens for me is that question, like all the existential stuff, like what's the point? Why am I here? Who am I? Like it starts.
Oh, you mean
it starts like screaming at you. Yeah.
You mean the scary questions? Yeah. All the things that we typically put into the background come to the forefront.
It's interesting because I don't know how intentional that is a lot of times. It just, when things are really busy, you
don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah, it gets pushed in the back. And then all of a sudden you look at things and you're like, okay, well, I've been working for that painting for my entire life, but now like what?
For me, that feels a little overwhelming or scary or...
Well, it can, but there is another side to it. And it can be exciting. There's opportunity, but it doesn't always feel good in the beginning.
Being able to look at that as an opportunity or something exciting is going to lend itself to sort of building what you want for that second phase.
Right.
And being intentional about how you want to spend your time in that second phase. And by the way, like we haven't really brought up this whole concept that time is not promised to us. Right? Like there's that too. It's really not ours.
There's that. And that right there just harkens the importance of, we hear it all the time, and it's easy to just be like, come on already with the one day at a time. But it's so fucking true. And that doesn't mean we can just say, well, yeah, the world's ending tomorrow, so I'm just spending all my money today and I'm not doing anything I'm supposed to do. Like, no, that's not the thing. So what's the recap? What are the micronutrients that are with us on time?
The big one I think that came to light for me is the letting go thing. Really letting go and not trying to control time, because can't do that either, is going to help me be more present in it instead of chasing it. And continuing to protect my energy and really front-loading my day with energizing activities. It's important to me to get up and exercise and take a walk and be outside a little bit. I like to start my day that way because I feel ready. And also being able to say no to stuff.
For sure.
My time is really important to me. And so I think really taking stock of the value of your time and protecting that too. You get to choose. Oh, and also do the thing you don't want to do first.
Oh, yeah.
After you've done the energizing things, because otherwise I go into procrastination land and then none of the things on the list get done. What about you?
Well, that feeds into one of mine, which is limit procrastination, because procrastination is just a time sucker, really, for me. And the other big one is just around being really conscious of how I'm invested in my time, what I'm committed to, and remembering there's always room to be flexible to some degree. Not everything can be changed, and there are certain things that need to be prioritized, but we do have some power in that. And I think it's easy to forget because we get on the treadmill and we get the blinders on and we're just headed to the destination. That's my big takeaway from this. And embedded in that, I love the talk about energy and self-care. And, by the way, just as a quick side note, some of the things that are energizing for me are also things that I don't really particularly want to do when I set out to do them. Exercise is one of those. Like,
yeah.
get up and go, God, I want to just go put myself in pain and I want to like pant all over the place and get sweaty. Like, no, I don't particularly love that, but I love how I feel when I'm consistently doing that and the energy that it gives me later.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that putting something in the bank for later. You're honoring your future self.
And this is sort of a rando pop culture reference from a long time ago, but I remember hearing some interview with George Clooney like 10 or 15 years ago. And he has been, really committed to his physical fitness. And he was talking about that. And he said, I just want to be able to do what I want to do. Like if I want to go out and do a 10-mile hike and see something beautiful, I want to physically be able to do that. So staying fit allows that option.
I just want to be around and I want to be able to do stuff. So bottom line for people to just consider, I want to leave them with, ask yourself what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to when it comes to your time. Like if you just pay attention this week of those two questions, what are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to?
And then assess, does that sound right?
Yeah.
I feel good about my answers to that.
Okay, well, that's enough time talking about time.
All right. Well, I'm all out of time.
We're going to leave you now, so we'll see you next time.
In the mud. Thanks for being with us in the mud today.
If you liked this episode, do us a huge favor and subscribe to the show. This is going to make sure you never miss an episode, and it's going to help us grow our muddy community, which would mean the world to us.
See you next time in the mud.